Okay, this is Jeffrey Rickman, and you're watching PlainSpoken, and I have been doing a series on interviewing influential African voices or representative African voices in the United Methodist Church. Today, I'm blessed to be able to speak with Bishop John Wesley Yohanna of the Nigeria Episcopal area. Bishop Yohanna, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Appreciate you, Rickman, for engaging me on your program today. I'm pleased to be with you.
Yes, sir. I have started this channel and this series of interviews because I think it's hard for a lot of people to understand why conservative evangelicals, traditionalists believe what we do, how we talk amongst one another, what we believe. And you, of course, are the most vocal bishop in favor of a conservative traditionalist understanding of the faith of Jesus Christ. Most recently, you've spoken out about the attempt to change the doctrine of the church with respect to human sexuality, and you've been very clear-spoken that that is not something that you want to be a part of. It's not something that the church in Africa wants to be a part of. And I, for one, have very much appreciated your clarity and your honesty about the kind of bishop you are and what you believe. The way that I've understood your ministry in Africa is that there are many different influences in how boldly Africans speak. And while there are people like Reverend Dr. Jerry Kula, who speak very loudly and boldly, among all the bishops, you are the only one who speaks in this way. And in fact, the other bishops have been hostile or not appreciative of conservative evangelical, the GMC or the WCA or the Africa Initiative. It seems to me over here in America that you stand alone. Have I understood things correctly, or do you think that there is more texture that I don't see yet?
Yes, I'm not the only one who speak boldly on this matter or subject matter of the human sexuality in Africa. There are also other bishops in Africa who are of the same mind with me. And so the only thing is that some of them who do not speak do speak in their various annual conferences. So I'm not the only bishops. There are also bishops in Africa who also will not accept the removal of the incompatible love. So I'm not an island. Here in Africa, there are also other bishops who are with me. And if you see them together, listen to them, whenever you hear me talk, none of them is speaking against me. None of them is saying, Yohanna, you are wrong. And they are with me. There are a lot of them. There are some of them who are with me. And in fact, I remember when we met as African College during in the last college meeting which I attended, not the one last year, which I was not part of it, but I remember previous ones. We've all spoken with one voice that we will not accept the removal of the incompatible language. And that has been the position of all the African bishops, and I think that has been the position. The recent African College bishops where which happened last year, which I was not part, was where a statement was issued, which you had me had my interview with UMCOM, which I say I was not. I respect them, but I was not with of the same opinion with simply because I believe in Wesleyan covenant. I believe also in Africa Initiative because these are a group of people who are advocating that we keep the Bible, we respect the Bible, we obey the Bible as the word of God, and that we make sure that homosexuality remains incompatible.
Yes.
So that's the only. And when I spoke, none of them opposed me. None of them say, "Oh, Yohanna, that is not our position." There are silent ones among the African bishops who are with me, and some of them are encouraging.
Yeah, I noticed that among traditionalists and conservatives, there are many, a majority that would have very similar theology to what you and I share, but they're not nearly as vocal or outspoken as say you or I. And part of the reason
Okay, the Nigerian situation differs with other African bishops. The situation in Nigeria is so complicated because the progressives have agents more in Nigeria who are also working tirelessly to ensure that they convince people, to be on their side. And so, as bishop, if I don't speak, who will speak for them? So that is why I need to speak out, so that people will understand what the church will become and what the church is going to become. So that is why I have to speak out. And if you see the way I have been castigated and all these kind of things, you can see that it's because the grace of God that is so sufficient that is keeping me, and that is why I keep moving. Right. Otherwise, people have been using their connections to ensure that I am nobody on earth. So, Nigeria. So the situation in Nigeria is very different.
Yeah, let's talk about Nigeria, because I've had the pleasure of speaking with Absalom Nuhu, and I've also gotten to speak with Ande Emmanuel. I've read many articles about Nigeria. I know more about Nigeria than any other Episcopal area in Africa, and it is very complicated. Yeah. So you are the bishop of the entire Episcopal area, but the entire area is made of 4 annual conferences. Nigeria, for an American audience, many Americans don't know that northern Nigeria in particular is a very hard place to be a Christian. There's a lot of Christian persecution. The government is Muslim and often attacks. Absalom was showing me a church that he planted and then was knocked down by the government. Yeah. And so there's active persecution of Christians there. But even within your Episcopal area, as you said, there is open rebellion from within the United Methodist Church of people who refuse to accept your leadership. And the way that Absalom explained it to me when I interviewed him was, even if Jesus Christ came to lead the church in Nigeria, the Nigerians would still be divided. It's just a very hard place to serve.
I differ with Absalom on that, because Jesus can perform a miracle and can change the situation. Yes, go on.
Well, yes, I think he surely agrees with you, but he wanted me to understand that as litigious and disagreeable as Americans are, Nigerians are people too. And I was curious, can you tell an American audience how many United Methodists do you serve in Nigeria? How many are there in your Episcopal area, roughly?
Roughly, the United Methodist members generally, but because of schism, a lot are on their own. There are some group who are on their own within the United Methodist Church in Nigeria, but they still call themselves United Methodist Church, United Methodist members. They remove, some of them say, well, we are United Methodist, but we cannot bear the name United Methodist Church in Nigeria, because with the corporate registration of this country, the country knows us as United Methodist Church in Nigeria, which means we are UMCN. So some people decide to tell themselves, we are only United Methodist. But when you ask them where, they will still come back to UMCN, but they are rebelling. And the rebellion are on the different risk grounds. And this situation also, as I've said, is a very complex one. This church, when started by Evangelical United Brethren, 1923, in 1968 through 85, the church has been in schism. That was a very great schism, a very strong division, which even as I speak to you today, part of that division remains, because they never returned to the church and they called themselves Ekan Muri.
Okay.
Which was the previous name and indigenous name we were using. So you can see, even before I came into ministry, there was a division that led another group calling themselves Ekan Muri that have still refused to join the United Methodist Church, and they are on their own. And then of recent, other groups also who came over, and that and they are saying they are UMC, they are United Methodist, but they still rebel against the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
As I speak to you, I don't know their statistics because they don't listen to me, but then they call themselves United Methodist Church. But I'm always trying to relate to them, to convince them to see the need of coming together, to be in with one another. However, as of today, United Methodist membership across the Episcopal area, which about with the 4 annual conferences, which are lead now, there are over 800, 1,000 people right now. What that I am leading right.
800,000?
About 800. But yes, don't listen to some of the misinformation that people give you wrong figures, just to create a certain impression of numerical growth that they think. Because I'm meant to understand that people like Andy will tell you over 100 million, over a million, all these kind of things. I read my statistics. I ask charges. I ask, district superintendent to give me statistics of our membership, and I'm following that.
Yeah.
We are, as of now, I cannot say the Episcopal area membership is up to 1 million. I cannot say that, but I know that we are above 800,000.
Yeah.
And it's because others have left and they are on their own. I don't know their numbers. I cannot count their numbers.
Right.
So this, I cannot say anything on that.
Well, the reason that I think a lot of Americans would want to know how many people are in your annual conference or you're in your Episcopal area, a lot of people are aware now that there are not nearly enough bishops in Africa for all the United Methodists that need to be overseen. In America, we have the whole Western jurisdiction that has many bishops. Over the whole Western jurisdiction, I believe, is smaller than your Episcopal area. And yet, for some reason, there are many fewer African bishops per capita than there are American bishops per capita. So I've been curious why it is that Americans have been it's been so easy for us to get more bishops. And in Africa, it's been very difficult for us to get more African bishops. Why is that? Is that because of decisions made over there, decisions made over here? It's a mystery to me.
Well, as clergy of the United Methodist Church, you know very well the way it operates. Decisions are taken at the General Conference, and it's not taken at the African level, but decisions for Episcopal areas are taken at the General Conference level. The General Conference allocates, Episcopal areas or approve Episcopal areas. But at the moment, Nigeria is able to submit a petition to the West Africa Central Conference for additional bishop, and we await the decision of the General Conference as to the approval of additional bishop. So we are waiting. But to be honest, Nigeria is so large that actually even 2 bishops cannot even handle the issues at hand. How I wish that each annual conference will have a bishop in Nigeria so that work will be easy for the bishop. But having, with the terrain, because another issue people don't know is the terrain, the situation, how to travel, from one place to the other.
Yeah,
there are no roads, there are no good roads. Sometimes people have to suffer and to manage to get into some places. So that's the situation. I'm looking forward for an approval by the General Conference. Hopefully, come 2024, that additional annual Episcopal area be given to Nigeria so that we can have another bishop.
So if I understand you correctly, we cannot get any more bishops in Africa until the General Conference approves it.
Sure, there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
Except we don't know with the situation going on in the church, except we don't know what will happen.
Right.
This year, next year, we don't know what will happen. Because if these changes continues to occur as these affiliations are ongoing in the US, we don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
Even with us in Africa.
Right.
because we do not know.
Well, in March of 2020, you and several, 7 or 8 or 9 other bishops signed a document saying that if the protocol was adopted, the protocol for peaceful separation was adopted, that you and those bishops would intend to leave the denomination peaceably. Hypothetically, even though many of the original signers of the protocol have abandoned support, I think the protocol will still be presented next year. And if the protocol is adopted, then you've already signed a document saying that you would be interested in severing. Now, if the protocol is not adopted next year at the General Conference, would you still leave at that point, or would you be committed to staying in the denomination as long as we did not change our language about sexuality?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
And a problem there. Even when the protocol passes, will disobedience stop?
Right.
Will there be a stoppage to disobedience onto the book of discipline? If they will not stop, if people will not stop disobedience, why should I remain because I signed a protocol document? There's no way.
Yeah.
If mere passing the protocol will also have disobedience attitude continuing, then the whole protocol plan is defeated.
Right.
Then there will be no need. I just have to be out of the entire system, because why should I be in a system where disobedience is the subject of the day? Why?
Yeah, it's been very upsetting for conservatives for a long time. And conservatives at General Conference, the last few in particular, we've tried to make it much more difficult for people to stay and disobedient. We've tried to make it so that people have to leave if they're going to disobey. And it's been difficult. People like me have wanted to imagine that there's a future where Africa takes over the denomination and kicks out anyone who's not willing to follow traditional Wesleyan theology. But it seems to me that nobody else is really hoping for that at this point, that even though there are more Africans than Americans in the denomination, it feels like a lost cause for a lot of conservatives. Is that kind of how you think of things, or are you as optimistic as me?
Well, if the conservatives leave, it's not their fault. It's because they have been forced to, and they have been forced by disobedience, continuous disobedience. And why should they continue, in a life that on something we all agree together, and then some others will not comply with it, and we continue in that kind of life? I don't think so I don't blame them. I have not seen anything wrong in it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't blame them either. In America, at least, there is no role for conservatives. We have completely lost our voice in America. In Africa, however, conservative voices are still loud and can be loud, and can be loud when you come to General Conference. And so I've liked to imagine that even though conservatives in America are leaving right now, that conservatives in Africa can reclaim ground, and that maybe the GMC and the UMC can come back together later if the Africans turn things around in the UMC. But I don't hear anybody else talking about that.
There's no way the Africans can turn things around in the UMC.
You don't think?
Because I don't think. Okay. How can we turn things around? We can remain if we remain in the United Methodist Church and disobedience continues in the US, we lost our connectionality. We lost the global perspective of the church. The church is no longer a global church as we know it, because whatever happens in America should happen in Nigeria, should happen all over using our common book of discipline.
Yeah.
But with what is ongoing now, the US church will never. And because of decisions have been taken by some group of people, and that they will not listen, they will continue to disobey, and that they will not accept any enforcement by any bishop.
Yeah.
The clergy will continue in their own way of doing things. So there will be nothing enforced by the bishop or any authority of the church. Therefore, how can Africans turn things around? Africans will continue doing their own things differently, and the United States, it will be done differently. Then for me, it is no longer the United Methodist Church I joined. When we all joined from Ekan Muri, we joined.
Yeah.
We joined a church that says no to homosexuality. And even before we joined the church, homosexuality was never a matter in our church.
Right.
That was how we joined the church. Now things have changed. In fact, of recent, some members of my church are saying they are threatening to sue the bishop and to also sue the board of trustees of the United Methodist Church here in Nigeria to court, to the Nigerian court, because they have diverted from the main, position of the church. It's no longer the church they were in. So they are asking the bishop to tell them which church now, since there is disobedience and all kind of things going on. There are bishops who have same-sex marriage and all these kind of things. So people are worried. They want to sue me now. So that I can go to the court to explain to the government or the court of Nigeria what is the position of the United Methodist Church.
Yeah. So, and for a Western audience,
they want to leave.
I think I understand what you're saying, and for the sake of a Western audience, a lot of Westerners don't know that in Nigeria and many other African nations, it's not just illegal to be in a gay relationship and do homosexual acts. It's also illegal to promote that. And so, if the United Methodist Church were to change its teachings on homosexuality and teach that it's good and holy and right, then that would put the United Methodist Church and you personally in a bad legal position where you could be prosecuted under Nigerian law. Does all that sound correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you are right. And that is what they are driving me to. Because I told them, let us wait till 2024. Some of them are telling me we cannot wait because there's disobedience right now.
Yeah.
And because there's disobedience right now, they cannot wait until 2024.
Yeah. Well, there's been disobedience.
This is one issue I'm battling with.
For a long time, there's been disobedience, and it's been upsetting the whole time, and it's been a clash where we've been fighting about who can get more power, who can get more influence, who can pass the right legislation. And it's just this very odd situation where conservatives won the day at General Conference 2019, but even so, when we came to understand that left-leaning United Methodists, liberal United Methodists were never going to stop agitating, even if they lost, at that point conservatives just said, well, then we need to leave, because it felt like we had already tried for decades to claim the Wesleyan heritage, and it just didn't happen. Just in case there's somebody watching who just thinks that you and I are obsessed with the homosexuality thing, I think you and I both feel the way we do about the homosexuality issues at stake because of a larger love we have for Christ Jesus and the Wesleyan heritage. It's probably been written up somewhere, but I haven't read it yet. Wesleyanism is obviously a big part of who you are. You were named after John Wesley. I wonder if you could tell me and my audience just a little bit, how did you come to love our tradition and want to serve within our tradition? What's your story?
Well, the EUB church has been my background.
Okay.
I grew from parents who are EUB members, though the EUB missionaries who came from the US, who came to Nigeria, allowed the church in Nigeria to adopt a local name, which is, it was then from EUB, the missionaries who came, from the beginning they said they are EUB, but later on they joined forces with other missionaries because they don't want competition among them.
Oh, sure.
So all the missionaries, the Lutherans, the Reformed, the Church of the Brethren, all abandoned their names and they adopted what we call Ekas Mori, the Church of Christ in Sudan. So all of them, and we also were part of the church in Sudan, Church of Christ in Sudan. Later on, they changed to Church of Christ in Nigeria. So we also became Church of Christ in Nigeria, ECAN. So my father was converted and he was part of the church in Sudan, in Nigeria. And so I grew up in a Christian home. And my father, because of influence of some, he will be missionary and pastors anyway. I think they are pastors who work in my village and they influenced my dad to give me this name. That was how I got the name. And what happened was that there was another pastor whose name was also John Wesley. He was a pastor and he served in my area. And because of his influence, I think that was how I got the story. So my father gave me the name John Wesley. And so that was how I received the name. And I didn't know that when I was growing up, I didn't know that John Wesley happened to be a leader of United, until later years when I grew up, then people started telling me, oh, there was a Methodist leader who is John Wesley and this and that. And so that was how I got this name. The name was given to me by my parents through the influence of another Methodist pastor who is late now. He is now late, but he also bears the name John Wesley. So
you were raised in the EUB tradition, but when the EUB combined with the Methodist Episcopal Church, it was the Methodist Church.
Yes.
Anyway, when they combined, you joined up and you were part of the local church, and then were you clergy?
When they combined in 1968, I think thereabout, then the missionaries who were coming were then Methodist missionaries, because the EUB missionaries who were here handed over mission work to the Methodist mission, board, and the global ministry was very influential, and other, annual conferences as well. And so, so officially by 1982, and then officially in 1985, we were then registered as a provisional conference. And then in 1992, we were then approved as a full annual conference with an Episcopal area where Bishop Dabale was elected as a bishop.
And so you were clergy this whole time?
Yes, I have never served anywhere. When I left high school in Nigeria, after high school, one can go to the seminary. Okay. So after high school, I went to the seminary. And then I have always been in the church. I have always been in the church. I've been serving as a pastor all my life.
When I talked to Absalom about what it means to be a Methodist, I asked him a question like, what is the main thing that we should focus on? What do you love about being a Methodist? What does it mean to be a Methodist as opposed to any other kind of denomination? What do the Methodists have that is just so wonderful? And he smiled at me and he said, holiness. And so I wondered how much is that the majority view? Is everybody clear about Methodism preaches holiness? Or do you think there are other things about the Methodist tradition in Nigeria, at least, that is distinctive and worth defending?
Yes. Apart from holiness teaching, righteousness, there is also the act of singing, worship, live, anywhere. The United Methodist members people recognize them by saying they are great singers. I remember the Methodist choir here, even here in Nigeria, going in to sing with other choirs from other different backgrounds. Our choir is always superb and wonderful. So that's another thing people knows the Methodist Church of.
That's a big part of early Methodism. Yes. John and Charles Wesley, of course, were known.
Also, exactly. And also, people know that the Methodist Church does things with different methods. In fact, we take any simple thing around and then make it something that will be of help to the church. For example, a friend of mine was sharing with me that one time he went to another seminary. It's not a United Methodist seminary. Mm-hmm. So the teachers in that seminary, because it's another indigenous church here that has grown with a larger membership in Nigeria. So they have a seminary. So a friend of mine went to that seminary. So he told one of the lecturers that in his church, there is a committee known as business committee.
Okay.
And the man was very surprised. He said, so your church has another committee known as business committee raising money for the church? And he said, yes, in his congregation he has. Mm-hmm. He said, no, your church really is a church that he would love to be part. And another one, he told him another one also shared another story of our church. There is another committee, they call it welfare committee.
Welfare, okay.
Welfare committee. Mm-hmm. Welfare committee. In our local churches, we do have this kind of committee.
Okay.
Other churches, they don't have. And the welfare committee in the Hausa ward, let me tell you how it's being called in Hausa. In Hausa, it is called committing Jin Daddy. And the committing Jin Daddy for a Hausa man. Okay. It means it's a committee of joy entertainment.
Interesting. Okay.
Committee that can entertain people, see the welfare, make sure that people are good, even in the church, by providing snacks, providing things like that. Yeah. Some churches don't have this kind of committees. Oh, sure. So when they look at the United Methodist Church, creating different committees, making sure that they put everybody, fixing people into different ways in which the church will feel relevant in the church, they are surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
And they say yes, and they say no wonder you are called Methodist.
Going back to the singing bit, I've seen a lot of video as I've been researching your Episcopal area. You have such amazing processionals into your annual conference sessions. I've seen several with hundreds of clergy and clergywomen lined up and singing together in different parts. In America, I've never seen anything like what you regularly put together in your Episcopal area, and I'm just so impressed. I find it so encouraging. I don't know, so beautiful. I wish that we could put on. It's not a production. I mean, it's a worship. It's a holy worship that is worth preparing for. And yet, so often in America, I'm sure you've seen it, we very often just have a worship band up front that's blasting music, and you can't even hear the congregation sing, half because the band is so loud, and half because the congregation doesn't even know the song. And so to watch a tradition in Nigeria where there is no band on stage, there is no amplification, there's just the people joyfully singing, is really quite wonderful.
Yeah. Really, this is really part of us.
So this kind of connects to maybe the I was asking you what you love about the Methodist heritage and what we preach uniquely, but I also want to know, as a bishop, you are willing to go to battle, you're willing to get angry with a righteous, holy anger. Some people would maybe get the impression that you don't love what you do, but if you didn't love what you did, you wouldn't stay a bishop, you would leave. So I wanted to ask you, what do you love about being a bishop? What do you really enjoy, and what brings you closer to God about being a bishop?
Well, in the first place, let me say that I want to clear this in the mind of everybody, that I see when I read Romans 3:23, I read it with the fact that I, John Wesley, Yohanna, have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. That is always my position. I don't see myself as any righteous person, but I see myself as a sinner who is made righteous by Jesus Christ. That's how I see myself. And therefore, I continue to rely on God, to rely on Jesus Christ to make me righteous.
Yes.
And I don't intend to continue to practice and act, no, that Christ has forgiven. I don't want to continue in those acts. Calling on Christ to always help me as a sinner, and I always continue to confess. Therefore, I am not saying that I am a righteous person who has not sinned. I am a sinner walking and looking unto the grace of God. Working as a bishop, why am I a bishop, especially in this kind of situation, where things are getting out of hand, a lot of provocations, and from my own Episcopal area, from the entire global area. And why am I still a bishop?
Right.
I think that's the question.
Well, and what do you love about it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes it's easy for me to say, well, today I cannot continue to be a bishop. But then as a bishop, I even did not dream I would be a bishop. When I went to seminary, after seminary, I was sent to teach in the seminary. That was after my seminary education. My first appointment was to go and teach. So I left for teaching in the seminary. And I never knew I was going to be a bishop. But, and also, the last bishop, indigenous bishop, Bishop Kefas Mavula, who was elected in 2007, I never knew this man was going to die because I am older than him. He was born 67. I was born 63. I was thinking I was going to even retire as a clergy, even before he retired as a bishop. But God knows why he passed away. And when he passed away, people started thinking that I should be a bishop. They nominated me. I never tell anybody I want to be a bishop. But people nominated me. People went and elected me joyfully. I was elected in West Africa at 1 ballot. And that was how I was elected. Sometimes when I want to quit, I will think of the people who have voted me, who have asked me to do this thing. And I look at them as not on their own. They were not doing it on their own. God led them to elect me. And if I leave, abandon the work, am I disobedient to God? Or what's my reason? Am I trying to prove righteousness? Or what am I trying to prove? And what will be the feelings of the other members of the church who still want me to be a bishop?
Yeah.
A lot of them, majority of the members of the church, of the 4 annual conferences where I serve, majority of them want me to be a bishop. People like Andy, because I removed them from the position they were serving in my office, I reassigned them somewhere. Then it became a blow. And then they started castigating me all over the world.
Yeah.
So I can count all of them in Nigeria who are making noise on me or saying all kinds of things on me. I have appointed them either next to me in the office, and because I have changed them, brought in other people to also learn what is going on in the Episcopal office, then they got angry, and so they started all these things. So sometimes with those crises within, I feel, well, if I leave, what the majority of the people who are saying I should continue as a bishop? And then with what is going on globally, sometimes I tell people, when problems erupt, we need to face it and correct it. If we all run away, how can the problem be corrected?
Right.
Stay in and fight and correct it.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm remaining a bishop is to stay and to also say my little voice.
Yeah.
Speak out with a gentle voice, with my little voice, thinking that God will help me in what I say, that things may be going the way God desires.
Yeah, I'm smiling.
So that is the reason why I'm staying on.
I'm smiling because your voice is not little, Bishop. You have a good, strong voice.
Oh, my voice is not, it's not strong. Okay.
Well,
yes, because,
you have a strong voice. Well, okay, so you see things the way you do, and I think I've heard you that the reason in your head that you keep reminding yourself why it is that you stay and go through the provocation is because you are motivated by duty and obedience to God and a duty to the people who elected you. You are not, if I were to listen to you, just the words you said, what I would assume is, with me, I love ministry. And there are some unfortunate things that come with ministry, but there are just so many good things that's why I go through the hard times. You go through much harder times than I do. I'm very spoiled as a pastor, very privileged. And what someone like me assumes is that there are things that give you joy or that you really enjoy that help remind you. But what I hear you saying is that really the thing that reminds you and motivates you is obedience to God and a felt sense of duty to the people who love you and respect you and elected you. So my interview method is more, I preach at the people that I speak to, and forgive me, it's very presumptuous of me to try and encourage you, Bishop, but I've read a lot of Christian history, church history, and some of the greatest leaders in the church throughout the centuries have been people who will argue with people, will fight with people for Jesus, not with their fists, but with their words. And in particular, St. Jerome is just one of the best early church fathers who contended for the faith. But also Martin Luther and John Wesley spoke very firmly sometimes. He was not always nice. And so I've really admired Christian leaders throughout the centuries who speak with clarity, not just about what they're for, but also what they're against. And it's hard to balance those things, right? And it's hard to be perfect in spirit, but I don't hear you pretending to be perfect in spirit. You said just now you're not perfect yet, that you are a sinner saved by the grace of God. And so, but you don't let your weakness keep you from contending for the faith. And that's why someone like me appreciates you very much, Bishop, because so many people are afraid to speak that. Even when they have that conviction, they just don't speak. And so even though a lot of people would see you as an enemy, I see you as an extension of that long heritage we have in Christ Jesus of speaking the truth in love.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
Well, and there are many people in America who see you that way and appreciate you for that. And our prayer for you is just that you maintain your righteousness and that as you navigate the trials and tribulations of your position, that you remain strong in Christ and that you don't let provocation take you away from your holy calling.
Yes. Yeah. And let me tell you, also that despite all this, when I get to the United Methodist General Conference, I see a lot of Christians in the U.S. who stand with me, stand with us in Africa, and therefore the church is still strong in America. I am, though the society, America as a country, people might think that, well, because of the dominance of what, the society is, they think that is how America is. But I also see Christians who are very strong in America, with people like you, people who voted with us at General Conference, people who even help us at General Conference on pattern of voting because of what is because of the nature of our general conference. And so I see a lot of strong Christians in America today, and I see them tomorrow, and we'll continue to see them always, day and day. So
yeah, we can't give up.
Leaders of the Wesleyan Covenant, yes, leaders of the Wesleyan Covenant and other leaders like you, I tell you, my brother, the church is still strong in America.
Well, we pray for a future where the Holy Spirit is poured out upon us in a strong way again, like in the days of revival. But in the meantime, we're just going to be faithful. And I do not imagine myself a leader. I am just a happy follower and admirer of those who contend for the faith. And for right now, I'm still United Methodist. My two churches are going through the discernment process. You know, my heart, I'm excited sometimes because I like to see a new move of the Spirit, and I pray for that. But I'm also sad sometimes because it's discouraging to see a body dedicated to the heritage of John Wesley and the early Methodists, and just how far it has. I don't see progress. I don't see good development. I see a worldliness that really should not have taken place in the church, and it makes me really sad. So I wish that things had gone differently, but things are what they are, and I'm just glad that we have anybody who still has a biblical approach to things. So anyway, I admire you, and I very much appreciate you taking time with me today, Bishop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another thing.
Go ahead.
Another thing which which keeps me is because our book of discipline still says homosexuality is incompatible. Paragraph 341, it still maintains the fact that it's incompatible.
Right.
So since the book of discipline is saying it's still incompatible, those who choose not to comply are on their own, and therefore I will keep the discipline, and so I will not break it, and I will continue to maintain it. That was why in one of my last interviews, I told people that I'm waiting to see what will happen in 2024. If by 2024, the incompatible language is removed, then there's no way I can continue.
Right.
And so I always tell people that, well, by then, people will see the church themselves, and everybody will have to decide.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the church will cease to be a global church again.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that today, and then I was feeling like maybe it wasn't right. But yeah, my question as I had it was, when I spoke with Jerry Kula, who is the head of the Africa Initiative, I was surprised when he said he's going to stay United Methodist until they change the language. And you just now said the same thing, that even though you're upset with the United Methodist Church and the lack of discipline in the in America, you're still United Methodist until they change the language to an unbiblical stance.
Yes, and if by 2024 the language is not changed, for example, they will say the protocol plan is passed, but that is no longer a global church, and that's my turning point from there.
Yeah,
because I'm United Methodist now because the church is a global church.
Yeah,
and with what will happen, the church will cease to be a global church because every section will adopt their own way of living.
Yeah.
And so if there's another global church that is going, I will prefer being with that global church.
Right. So the Christmas covenant is going to be presented at the next General Conference, which is supposedly supported by some African voices, but that would also essentially break up a global church. It would isolate Africa from America in its doctrine, in its book of discipline. So is it your mind as well that if the Christmas covenant is passed, that the denomination is already broken as well?
Sure. Yeah. Christmas covenant promotes, keeping of same-sex marriage in the United Methodist Church. That is what they are promoting. They are saying, well, everybody can do things they feel like doing. Those who feel like, not keeping paragraph 341 can do so. And those who want to make sure that they do what pleases them, they can do. Which means it's a promotion the one church plan, which was rejected sometimes by the church. A Christmas conference is nothing far from one church plan. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the challenge for most people in Africa. And therefore, when Christmas or one Christmas covenant proposal goes through, that means paragraph 341 cannot be applied.
Right.
Which means everybody can marriage. The definition of marriage will change.
Yeah.
In the United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And once the definition of marriage changes, then Africa and most of us, I don't think we will, be happy about that, and we will be part of the church.
Well, the thing as I've been doing these interviews with different people in different parts of Africa, I've been, I don't know what the right word would be, surprised in not a good way that, generally speaking, Africans do speak with one voice about sexual ethics and behavior, but there have been people who've risen to the top of the United Methodist Church in different places in Africa who are not of the majority opinion, and who seem to be gaining more influence. So it feels to me as though, even though on the grassroots level, most United Methodists would agree with you and me, at the top levels, even in Africa, there are many who are hopeful about giving Americans their way.
Yeah.
And so I'm already praying about General Conference 2024. I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be hopeful, and I know there's so many faithful brothers and sisters in Africa who are going to faithfully participate. And I know that there's already been the case that African delegates have been told to vote alongside American liberals, and they've said, no, we're going to stand by our principles. And a couple of bishops have been very angry about that. But I just hope that Africans, not just you, but all of my Methodist brothers and sisters, maintain their integrity and their courage, because it takes a lot of that to stand against the pressures that are felt at General Conference. So I've appreciated my African brothers and sisters, and I'm going to continue to pray for all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like an American audience to know about you, about Nigeria, about what we're all doing right now?
Well, if there's anything I will call on everybody to be along with me is, number one is prayer.
Yeah.
Pray for me, pray for the church in Nigeria. And I think this is very vital. And pray for us so that there will be stability, so that there will be that oneness, even as Christ called us to be one, so that we will, continue to spread the gospel in unity, so that people will see us as people of love, people also who are united in what they are doing. So I need your prayers.
Yes.
And also let us continue to pray for the United Methodist Church, also for the General Conference that is coming. I think that has always been my call. Anywhere I go, wherever I stand, I always ask that pray for Nigeria Episcopal area, pray for the United Methodist Church, what is going on, so that the Lord of the church will bring unity, bring understanding to the churches generally. So that is what I always call. So that has always been my. Yes.
I think that's a great note for us to end on. And how about we just go ahead and end the recording, and then if you have just a couple more minutes, we could just pray together privately. Would that be okay, Bishop?
That is wonderful.
Okay.
I told you I have designated the day for you, the time for you. So you still have time.
Yes.
I'm available.
Well, we'll go ahead
and
we'll cut the recording and let's pray. Give me just a second. And anyone who tuned in, thank you so much for watching and listening. And I would ask you to pray with Bishop Yohanna for his annual conference, for the United Methodist Church, and for the future of the Wesleyan movement. So God bless you, and you're going to miss out on a great prayer time with me and Bishop Yohanna. So you can be envious of me.